Welcome to Mindset Mastery Moments, the best growth mindset podcast recognized by Million Podcasts and ranked as a top mindset podcast by FeedSpot. We're proud to be in the top 1% on Listen Notes. Join Dr. Alisa Whyte as we explore powerful insights and strategies to elevate your mindset. Let's dive in.
Let me say this up front. We are living in a world where people want healing, but not responsibility. They want results without change. And more increasingly, we're looking for some sort of relief, but not really practicing reflection. And we're going to talk about it too. A lot of people want wellness without ownership. Today's conversation is not for the passive listener. And it's not for a person who knows deep down that they want change, but they don't want to do it. It's for that person who's looking for something more when it comes to modern healthcare that may or may not be working for them. They have questions. And that mindset is going to be the missing piece to where they're headed around this questioning. Because you cannot medicate your way out of a lifestyle problem. You cannot outsource the work that is required for you to heal. Welcome back to Mindset Mastery Moments. I'm your host, Dr. Alisa Whyte, the #1 mindset disruptor, and this is the space where we challenge the way you think so you can change the way you live personally, professionally, physically as a holistic being. And today we're going to take you there. Joining me today is a very prominent guest who I deeply respect. Not just for what he and his wife does, but for how boldly they tell the truth. I am speaking with Dr. Mark Sherwood. He is a pioneer in functional and longevity medicine. He is a best-selling author along with his beautiful wife and partner, filmmaker, national media voice, and the founder of a full-scale functional medical practice serving patients across the U.S. and globally. But what really matters to me is that they just don't treat symptoms. They treat people. And they refuse to coddle mindset excuses that keep people sick. Dr. Mark Sherwood, welcome to Mindset Mastery Moments. I'm so glad to have you here. Tell us in your own words what you do and why you do it.
Well, first, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for having me. I've been looking forward to this. So I am by trade a naturopathic doctor, and as stated, I work with my wonderful wife, best friend, and queen, I like to call her, Dr. Michelle. Together, we form the Functional Medical Institute, but we really have a unique background and mindset in the way that we view things. Both of us have very unique backgrounds, but I suppose everything in your past prepares you for, your present and also your future. But nonetheless, as you mentioned in the very well done bio, I appreciate that, and very well done intro. The idea of what we do is we teach people how to live younger, older, teach them how to expand their health span, decrease their sick span. Actually, we really do want to add more life in the years, not just years in the life. With the idea of longevity for us, it's really about doing what you want, when you want, how you want, as you want later in life. We really believe there's a way to do that. We believe that people have not been given the correct information or the totality of the information, let's say, given the proper choice. And we just want to encourage people to do that. So throughout the last 15 years, we worked together. We've had the privilege, benefit, opportunity, blessing of seeing people change, a lot of them. And with us, it is really about expecting healing, expecting wellness, expecting disease prevention, rather than just reacting to disease processes.
So important, I guess. You guys have found the fountain of youth.
Well, we're working at it. I know that
Close. Yeah.
Well, we're going to, as we like to say, we're going to change addresses, and this physical body we have is going to perish. But in the meantime, we really detest human suffering. We really don't like the concept of an increased, elongated, certain death span. I look at it like this: if people could, see my hand, it's like we're born, we live our life, and then we change addresses. Not this inverse bell curve kind of process where you decline for the last 10 years and on multiple medications, bedridden, etc. But you have more of a rectangle life, and at the the last day you lived was a day that you were active, that you experienced life to the fullest, and really don't see where. I mean, I get that physical decay is going to happen, but we believe wholeheartedly that in this country, really and around the world, we're not really living longer. We're living worse. We're actually dying longer through life instead of living longer through life.
Well, that's a mic drop. Dying longer. I could see it. You said it and yes. Whoa. I
And that
was
makes me
thinking about
sad.
the
You know, it really
rectangle.
does. Yeah.
What just break that down first. What does the rectangle look like? Because when you said it, I saw it. When you said like you're staying, there we go, like this. We're coming up as kids, and we have this long time ago that, and then we're coming down. Tell me why a rectangle? Why that shape?
Well, it's because like when you're born, that's life. So life,
Mhm.
boom, you have life straight up. And then you
Mhm.
start living that, perhaps that dash, like I was born here and I died here. You live that dash and it's elevated the whole time. It doesn't have this decline in physicality. It doesn't
Mhm.
have a decline in ability. It doesn't have a decline in awareness or cognition,
Mm.
but it's straight across the board. You're living
Mhm.
every day to the fullest, to the max, to the highest potential. And then when it's time to end your time on earth or your time is destined to end, well, you just simply, it goes
Go
down.
down.
That's it. And so you really don't, we should not expect, and we do,
Mhm. We're
we should not
conditioned to,
expect
yeah.
to have that type of existence because as you well know, you can kind of prophetically, you know, prognosticate what you get by what you repeatedly say. And it
Absolutely.
builds your expectations, and those expectations can build reality. And so we really got
Mhm.
to think about what we're doing, why we're doing it, have we been told the truth? And if not,
Mhm.
it's our fault. And it's our job at this point then to go find it. And so,
Yes.
with that said, my wife and I have been on a mission to, and we don't have everything figured out. I want you to know, and I want the listeners to know. But
Mhm.
I've learned this, that every day that I think I know something, there's more that I don't know. And the more
Mhm.
that I know, the more I realize I don't know, which keeps me hungry to learn more. And I think there's
Yes.
so much that we have to learn about this thing called life.
Exactly. Wow. I love that. And so I feel like you're pivoted, like you said, you don't know everything, but you've positioned yourself to be a conduit for change and change that's lasting change that, like you said, not be a bell curve type of life anymore. Because when you said we're we're dying, it's like, what did you say? I think you said we're dying through life and not living through life. I think
Yeah.
that was what you
We're
said.
not living longer, we're dying longer.
Dying longer, right. It's like you because there's people are so sick from their mid-20s on, they're comfortable, "My arthritis, my this,
Right.
my that," right? And so we are obviously, without sounding alarm or sounding trying to scare anyone, I believe that there is a healthcare crisis, not because of a lack of information. We have the most information, the most revolutionary set of information in human growth and development and health, but yet we still are in a crisis. And I think according to your work, I voiced it to say because of a lack of ownership. From your perspective, Dr. Sherwood, what do most people understand about healing before they ever walk into a clinic?
Most people's mindsets regarding health center around the idea that you just talked about. They don't believe, and they haven't been taught that they do own it. They haven't been taught
Mm,
that health is really a choice. It's not by
mhm.
chance. In other words,
Right.
the system is set up today to get you to believe that it's just by chance. Dr. Alisa Whyte's got bad genes, so too bad, it's luck of the draw.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of talk about reversal of disease processes. It's mostly management. So those are the two prongs that people are inundated with all the time. And so that kind of sets the tone for their belief system. And then when you
Mhm.
go to a clinic or go to the doctor, this is the third issue that I think people don't think about too much is your question there is a wrong question. The
Mm,
question is this is can you tell me what's wrong with me? And that question goes deeper than just the physical symptom you've got. Because if your whole life is
Mm,
spent on what's wrong with me, you've forgotten what's right with you. And so even when people
right.
come in and talk to us or we're talking to somebody remotely, I'm not disregarding or dismissing the things that are not going well or the
Mhm,
negative symptoms because of some upstream dysfunction. But
mhm.
I'm not going to allow the conversation to go in a direction where that is the center of the conversation because you forget everything else around it. Because some people might have GI issues. I'm just using that as a simple example,
Mhm.
but at least they have a brain that recognizes they have GI issues. I know that sounds kind of silly to think about, but we've got to think about the things that are going well. Did they have 2 feet? Did they have the mobility to walk in? Did they have the ability to think enough to figure out how to run a Zoom? I mean, did they
Right.
have a job? I mean, did they have food in their refrigerator? Were they aware of how to buy things? I mean, I'm being kind of silly when I say this, but it really does matter. And so
It
you
does.
got to get them squared away in that. You got to say, okay, before we go there, tell me about you. What's going well? Tell me about your husband, your wife, your kids, your dog, grandkids, whatever. And so it sets the tone for a better way. So those 3 things need to shift because right now we're in our country, we're in the worst health that we've ever been in the history of mankind's existence right
Mhm.
now. And we just need to like soak that in a moment. And the majority of it is because of those 3 things I just talked about. We have
Mhm.
all the materials and resources here at our fingertips to bring about change. But the change has got to start with the person staring at us right back in the mirror.
Yes. Wow. So good. It sounds like you're saying that healing starts before the protocol ever begins because it's in your mind. That decision is made.
It is. And I think, too, we as doctors need to do something a little bit better. It's called listening. We have one mouth
Mm.
and 2 ears, and I think a lot of times we probably get it backwards. We talk as twice as much as we listen, and I watch people come in, and if you give them the space to walk through a situation and listen to them, not just what they're saying, but listen to maybe what they're not saying, and
Yeah.
through that process, they feel better. And there's
It's true.
something that's healing when someone feels heard.
Whew. I can't even argue with that.
It's a true statement. I mean,
It
when people
is.
think they got heard and believe that someone had some empathy or sympathy or love towards them,
Mhm.
I mean, that's one of the most basic fundamental things there is.
I call it a human need, and I don't
Come on.
people make it,
Yes.
like it's a desire or we all want it. No, it's I in my own hierarchy of needs, it's right there with food, clothing, and shelter to be seen and
Yeah,
know that you matter.
that's it.
And I tell people, if you wanna win people, listen to them, let them know you heard them, because sometimes we listen, but we don't let people know we're hearing them. Just
Yeah.
acknowledging, like, I know sometimes you go to a grocery store or whatever, there's a long checkout line, and I can tell maybe the young woman, or even sometimes a young man, or just the individual standing there is just ready to go. They've had a long day, especially during the holidays. And one of the things I do when I pull up, I'm like, "Man, it's crazy in here. Does these people know and don't know how to stay home?" I'm like, "Golly." And I said, "But here I
Good.
am complaining and you gotta deal with all of us. When does your shift
Yeah.
end, honey? I'm about to go home in an hour." I'm like, "Whew,
Yeah.
well, listen, if I were you, I know you counting it down, man. I hope you enjoy the last hour of your shift." She'll start saying it, and then one person came in here, and she's just in that second, she's doing toot, toot, toot. She's telling me about some of the crazy stuff that's happened in her day.
Yeah.
We're kicking and giggling, but I'm seeing her, and a lot of times, I'm not gonna lie, I do that on purpose because I'm just propelled to let them know. And I say, man, look, thank you so much for making this easy for me, making my wait. Because honestly, I watch you and you keep moving longer. Some other cashiers are running around and leaving people and not coming back for minutes. I just appreciate you, man. Whatever it takes to just let
Yes.
another person, because you know what? There are times I need that. I'm the worker or the individual who just want to be seen for a second. when I'm in the airport and they're giving me a hard time about my carry-on and the person behind me says they were just overdoing it. Just the fact that he said that, makes me feel like, okay, I'm not crazy for thinking they were just giving me a hard time. Someone else saw it. So that's just a human
Someone else
exchange
saw,
that we
someone
need,
else
Doc.
heard. Yeah, it is. And, just simply saying, you know, you're in a restaurant and the waiter's having a hard time and having a bad day, whatever. Just simply to acknowledge that and tell them you appreciate them anyway. That's something that'll light them up,
Yeah.
man. Sometimes that changes and shifts their whole demeanor for the day. Cause look, every one of us is subject to having a hard time. And when you're
Yes.
in the positions that we're in, where encounters are not 24/7, 365, they're little, 30, 40 minute, hour and a half kind of sessions. I think
Mhm.
people at that moment in time, you may be the lifeline for them. You may be the only thing,
Yes.
the only person they have to talk with, not to, but with. And we
With.
sometimes forget that. People
Yeah.
today need that interaction.
Yes. And just think of it. That's the prescription that we each can write without having to have an MD or a PhD. We
Yeah.
literally, you don't even have to. I tell people, even when you feel like you really don't care, just, just find the courage to start to act as if you do. Because once you start acting as if you do and you see the results, you'll see. Now I truly want to show people because when you give it out, it's that all comes back to you as well in that moment. It's so enriching. Like you feel better about yourself.
Yeah. What you give, you will receive, one way or the other, one side or the other. Certainly, giving people love doesn't always mean that they're going to receive it, but it does mean that you
Right.
gave it. And that's the point.
You give it. Yes. So let's talk about those self-imposed disease and some of the hard truths that hang around that. Now, you and Dr. Michelle said something that makes people uncomfortable, and I love that, is that many chronic conditions are choice driven. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. Many chronic conditions are choice driven. Now, before anyone gets all defensive here while you're listening to this, can you explain what do you mean by that and why accountability is actually empowering and not shaming?
Well, it's actually one of the most empowering things you can do to really understand why you choose what you choose and being willing to accept the consequences of your choices. Right. And so
Your
that's
choices,
empowering.
yeah.
You decide, whether you want to go down the road to the right or the road to the left, knowing full well where they go. You make the choice. That's empowering because you have the
Mhm.
choice. But where most people don't understand today, they make choices. And I'm not picking on the medical system here. It is a system, but they make choices based upon what they believe is right. And then
Mhm.
sometimes because the majority makes those choices, I mean, let's look at the standard American Western diet. It is terrible. It's not healthy. In that case, that food is not information. That food is inflammation. It is not healing.
Mm,
It is harmful and it's dangerous for
mm,
us. But yet we do it anyway because it's cheap, it's easy, and everybody else around us does it. And it's the
mhm.
majority. And you saw that cascade as I spoke earlier in the interview about the disease trends we have right now. They're the worst ever.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the majority of that, and I'll put it up there to 85% plus, those diseases, I'm talking the common diseases we face today, blood sugar issues, autoimmune issues, brain issues,
Blood
heart
pressure.
disease, cancer, bone disease, osteoporosis, those disease processes, in my assessment, and I believe this, the majority of those should not and would not exist if we would just make better choices with the idea of lifestyle, which is what you eat,
Mhm.
what you do, how you think, how you manage stress, and how you sleep. It's not that
Mhm.
hard when you,
It's
and
very
I'll
simple.
cut people a break here, but when you're in a home with four other people and you get the message, and you start eating healthy as just an example, other people might not understand. And then what are you going to do? Are you going to like
Exactly.
cook a separate meal for yourself? Well, in that case, and this is
It's hard,
something
but
that
it's a
people have
path
to
least
gather,
traveled, but that's probably what you have to do.
somebody's got to lead the way. Somebody has to step up and lead the way.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody has to be number one. And
Mm-hmm.
that number one person, I mean, I can tell you, my wife and I have been out on that edge for a long time, and it gets lonely. It gets hard. But doing the hard
Mm-hmm.
things are what help other people have life easier. I'm going to say that one more time. I want people to catch
Yeah.
that. If we decide to do the hard things, other people ahead of us or behind us, even our family, might have life easier. Doing the hard
Yes.
things matter. And we've got to
Yes.
decide, are we going to be the one that's going to lead the way? Or are we going to be one that's going to follow and continue to perpetuate the problem deeper into society?
Be the victim. That is mindset mastery right there in real time. Moving from victimhood mindset to taking leadership of your body, your life, and I say your legacy. You know,
Yes.
what better way? Because now you are leading the way. And I took it on there's certain diseases that have just came down on side of my dad's side of the family, and became aware of it very early, around age 14, when my dad's mom passed. She died with her blood pressure was so high, she had like a blood vessel burst or whatever, and ended up just dying in her
Like an
sleep.
aneurysm.
She was Yeah, aneurysm, that's the word. I think she was, I don't know, grandma was probably not even 60, or if any, I don't think she even hit 60, maybe 62 if that old. Very young.
Mm-mm.
His dad died even younger. He died with, it was something to do with his blood sugar. And so we,
Mm.
again, from South America, we're not even here. That was back in those days when all this stuff we have going on now was not even available to them. They were probably more anything the one meal eater. So they were just quote unquote naturally with these diseases. Of course, my dad and his siblings suffer. So I was aware of that since younger. So I was always that seeker of what's healthy. What should we do? I'm very health conscious about it. And then I went through my own spear in my life, midlife. I say midlife, I was in my 30s, where I struggled with all the things. Even without my help, I remember my ex-husband saying, I don't understand how you struggle with this, but you deal with this. So there's a body mind connection that people aren't making. There's that, of course, DNA. But DNA, what we're learning now, and Doc, you can comment on this, is a lot of times DNA and the trauma in your DNA is and the mindset that comes with family history is sometimes bigger than even what your DNA, so to speak, biological DNA, because I hate, I'm going to go there, but you're not mind, body, and soul on separate parts. They're all one, right? So,
That's right.
however your soul is doing, that's how your body is going to do. So there are people who are really good at health, fitness, and nutrition, but they're not seeing results because mentally and emotionally unresolved trauma, some of it not on your own. Now they're showing that trauma from 4 generations back still kind of exists in your psyche unconsciously, and you're performing. For example, like, okay, you have to have rice. In my culture, if you don't have rice on your plate every day, you're not eating. And I remember as a child, I didn't like rice naturally, but I was, forced to eat it anyway. And then I let go of it in my mid 30s, and I still eat rice, but it's a treat. For me, rice is like eating candy. I don't eat it
Yeah.
every day. I don't eat it all the time, but when I do, I savor the flavor. And it's the same with rice, and it's a very small portion. But when I was growing up, it's this much rice and this much vegetable and this much protein. Coming from South America, it probably makes sense, right? Because that also is part of it geographically. What was the economic standing in your country where you were being raised? Well, we say, well, what's the excuse in America? Well, people are in poverty here too, and we give them more sugar to, like, you can get, even people on food stamps can do way more with crappy food versus good food, because even when they try to buy good food, that food stamps only go this far, but
That's
they can
right.
get all this much of sugar. So we have all this going on, Doc. So let's address the elephant in the room, right? And you can respond to those as we go along. But I want to throw this out there: medication, not anti medicine. We're not being anti medicine, but we're anti dependency. I know for me, I am. Why has our system normalized lifelong prescriptions instead of asking deeper questions?
I believe a lot of it is to do with the money that drives the bus. We live in a world where we're one of two
Mm,
countries on planet Earth that allow the mainstream media to advertise big pharmaceutical drugs using network TV, radio, etc. I mean, us and New Zealand are not the only countries in the world that do that. But the second problem is,
hmm
why is the Food and Drug Administration an administration? What does food have to do with drugs, and what does drugs have to do with food? That makes you understand
Isn't it the same
why,
thing?
if you can have one, if you pardon the play on words, feeding each other, then that's why they're
Mm,
together. Again, then you go to
mm,
the third problem: is the government subsidizes these things that create food that acts as inflammatory and disease causing. The government subsidizes the wheat products, grain products, corn, soy, sugars, dairy. They go to this path, and they make them available at a lower price. And then the food stamps, the WIC, all these SNAP programs, they take those things and make them available only to purchase these things. So it's a big old circle that goes nowhere. And at the same time,
yeah.
anybody out here listening can look at the CDC and look at their own statistics and see that ever since the food pyramid was uh, put upon and put out into our education system, ever since that day, that time, I'm talking back in the 80s, everything has declined in regard to America's health. At that time in history, there was one state using the BMI, although that's not perfect, and I get that. But one state at that time of our 50 had a BMI in obesity over 10%, just one. Once the food pyramid
Whoa.
was initiated, it took 11 years for every state except one to go above 10%. And now we've got several states that are above 60%, and the obesity trend is continuing to now it'll be one in two, more than 50% this year across the country. And then by 2050, you're looking at 100%. And then the disease trends, I
Mhm.
could go autism, GI disturbances, type 2 diabetes, et cetera, et cetera. To your point, I want to comment on the genetic part of this because people get this, and you mentioned the body, mind, spirit connection. Super important. So our genes, again, those disease processes weren't around 100 years ago. And some
Mhm.
people, to shift it away from the truth, they would say, well, people weren't living that long. That's why you have them now. Well,
Mhm.
that is a manipulative way to explain a non-truth, because you go
Mm.
back before that and people live longer, right? There was
Yes.
a dude named Noah that I think most people have heard of. He lived 120, or he lived to 900 years old. And then you got a guy named Moses who, after the flood, he lived to 120. So people cannot
Yes.
say that we're living longer. We're not living longer. We're living worse. And so our
Yes.
genes are books of recipes. They're made of, these little books of recipes, and they construct amino acids to make proteins. So when you have a traumatic moment, you have fear, the body will create proteins to deal with that. When you have a virus, the body will create proteins to deal with that. When you have an injury, it creates proteins to deal with that. And our genes are always responding to our environment all the time.
Mhm.
And the patterns in which we respond are encoded upon those genes through methylation patterns, and they're passed
Mm.
down, as you mentioned, through 4 generations. And about 40% is passed down from mom to child. So if you look at this in the compounding effect, those patterns, 40% compounded over time, is a lot of change that can't be changed. And somebody has to stand the gap, so to speak, and say,
Yeah.
I am going to stop, and I'll say it, the generational curse. I'm going to stop it. And I'm going
Mhm.
to be the one to step in the gap for my next generation. And I know it was a lot
Right.
of answer to a short question, but I think it's important to catch all those
No.
angles. It is hard to take the step to stand out front, but it's so necessary. And I really believe
Mhm.
broadcast, podcast, television speaking I've ever done. I really believe this. As God helps me, I'm going to pour my heart and soul into everything I do, including this right here. If there's people out there right now that think you can't, this podcast is for you. You can. If there's someone out there that
Mm-hmm.
says, I've been discouraged, I think I couldn't start over. Yes, you can. Today's your
Mm-hmm.
day. And this is maybe a
Day
wake-up
one.
call for somebody, I hope.
Mm-hmm. And that's the importance of what we said earlier. It is a decision you make.
Yes.
If you're hearing here, it's not good. No doctor's offices. This is why Dr. Sherwood does what he does. They're not there to tell you this. So don't expect it. You're not going to get someone,
Hmm.
this is your sign. He just signed off on it. And so do I. It's done. And his wife, Michelle, in her absence, obviously, she signed off. He can't, the king would not move without, I mean, she's the neck. So she turned him this direction. And hopefully, and soon we'll be able to meet her here on Mindset Mastery Moments. Let me ask you this. How do you help patients mentally transition from the fix me to the teach me? Because we go to the doctor's office and we want to fix. I need to go to the doctor. This leg is hurting me so much. We want to fix. I go and I ask, this is like, don't rush me. This is me and my doctor. I'm like, Doc, I'm not done. I got one more question. And so now he knows he has to say, anything else? Anything else? Because listen, you think you're going to come and make a 30, for me, I got a 30 minutes time slot, which I'd like an hour, but I got 30. I don't know. They tell me my appointment and I make up in my head 30. So you're not going to rush me through for 5 minutes. I will get my 30. So when you tell me that my white blood cell count is lower, what does that mean? And how do I know? And he's having to show me charts and stuff like that because I want to learn. I don't want you to, because he's going to give me a prescription. That's what he is trained
Yes.
to do. I'm looking for a deletion.
There. That's
This
good.
stuff deleted out of my body. So I have to become a student of what I'm suffering with and dig for it both in all parts of my life. And then I'm going back and asking my mama questions and my daddy questions and my auntie's questions because I realized they hold some information I need. And then I
Yes.
found I was born anemic. My mom didn't even know she was pregnant with me until she probably was like 4.5 months pregnant. She was having a period the entire time. And then it turns out my dad, I didn't know he wasn't anemic, but his sisters suffer. When I start asking, like 3 of them suffer with blood count issues. Then
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, so it compounded for me. So now I know what I'm up against. And this is not just a random act of violence against my body. This is something that's been going on. It stops with me. I will not live a half life because of this. I would live above this and I will delete it. So talk to us about the fix me versus the teach me.
Well, physicians are supposed to be, by very nature, teachers. And so if a teacher teaches well, the student becomes the teacher. And in this case, in this application, the
Oh.
student, in this case, the patient, is learning well and the teacher is teaching well. Then the student knows why they're doing what they're doing. And they know the front from the back. They know why they have the symptoms. They know the root cause of the symptoms. They know what caused that, and they know how to remedy that, or they have a protocol or a process to fix that. And that information, if communicated properly from the physician to the client, is something that they can understand. So the physicians need to communicate at a level, at a pace, and in a style in which the client understands. A teacher has to teach in a language that the student can understand. And if that all happens, and the student, in this case, the client, the patient gets it, there is empowering that takes place. They came in the office looking to be fixed, but they came out of the office filled with confidence. And see, that's what we need to really have, because on the flip side, if you just give them a pill, they may go out of there and have confidence that the pill's going to deal with those symptoms, but they're still in the back of their mind. What if it comes back? What if that comes back? What if this gets worse? And it's just an endless cycle of going back and forth to the conventional medical system doctor in that case. And the doctors aren't bad people. I'm not bashing them, but it's not having the time to explain the the physiology and the pathophysiology, right? It's both.
Mm-hmm.
And this again, people need to know it's not the doctor's fault; it's a system fault because the
It's a
doctors
system.
don't have the liberty to do that because they'll get fired. And if they get
Mm-hmm.
fired, they can't pay their bills. So,
Mm-hmm.
they're under a lot of pressure as well. Your interaction descriptor is very common in that system. Most people,
Mm-hmm.
the doctors, they probably see you come, they go, my God, I got 30 minutes. She's going to make me give this. But
They
again,
either
that's kind
love
of
me
what
or
I
they
think
hate
needs to
me.
happen. Yeah. Yeah.
They know I'm going to ask questions because I know they have to get back is what they want to do, but I ask enough questions to get enough information so I can do my research.
Yes.
And once I get enough of that and they kind of point me in direction, does this mean that? One of the things, if you're listening, one of the things, I find a lot of people get medication from doctors and they don't even know why because of the
I have
fix
no
me
idea.
mindset. And doctors, the way the system is set up, don't volunteer information about prescription. And honestly, this is why they practice medicine because with
Yeah.
every patient that come in, they can be different. So they're only using the practice of what's been studied, what's known to be normal. Then here you come, get the prescriptions to the same blood pressure medicine that causes you impotency. Well, it is a possibility. It's part of the white paper. It's part of the efficacy. It's there. The information is there. But you can't expect the doctor to tell you everything that can go wrong. I mean, they do on those commercials that you just spoke about earlier. And I'm like, just go ahead and drink a dose of poison. Sorry. Every
Yeah.
time I hear them, may cause blindness, may cause dizziness, or like death. Ultimately, I'm like, just go ahead and drink poison. I'm like, how does this make sense that we let this happen?
Well, you look at the commercialism. I mean, the way it's done, and if we really break that down, the opening is all about
Patience
healing and
goes so
health
fast.
and amazing and awesome and
And people's
smiles and
life
relief
getting
and
into romantic
testimonials.
situation.
And then at the
Yes.
end, the pace of the verbalization increases. It increases about 1.5, sometimes 2.0 speed so that they can compress that in that little 30-second spot that they purchased for, probably several $1 million when they should have spent on research. The second part of that is, and this people need to know, back to our genes. Medications all have to be metabolically broken down or detoxified. The detoxification enzymes are created by our genes. The detoxification enzymes are proteins. They're all a little bit different. You might break down a blood pressure medication at a different speed than I do, at a different speed than Dr. Michelle.
Mhm.
And that's why the doctor will say, literally, let me try this on you because
Yes.
they don't know whether it's going to work or not. And therein lies
Yes.
a major problem because in some circles, statistically speaking, one of the third, maybe fourth leading cause of death could be properly prescribed medication and properly done surgeries. And that makes you really think.
Mhm.
And so, again, we're not saying medication is bad, but the
No.
overall dependence upon it with not understanding the applicability of it is bad. And we need to take some time. My
Mhm.
wife and I got out of that whole insurance model about 12 years ago because we got tired of dealing with someone telling us what to do, how to do it, and depending on the reimbursements and all
Knowing
that
it.
stuff. So we
Because you
said,
know better now,
no
you wanna
more.
do better. Yeah,
We know better. That's right. People matter. People deserve the time and the full explanation.
I agree. And that's the thing, even when you said that, this is why they said we're gonna try this. I find, and this is accountability again, that you spoke about earlier, that taking ownership of your own life and body instead of being the victim. A lot of doctors, and I've been guilty of it in the past, when they say we're going to try this medicine, come back in 3 weeks or come back in 2 months. A lot of us don't go back. So the
Right.
medicine eases some of those symptoms. You have some new symptoms
Yes.
that are very minor, but you're not paying attention to it. Then it adds up over time. If you would have gone back to the doctor in the time frame, he would have asked you a series of questions to see if this medicine is working with your specific biology, psyche, etc. But you didn't go back because you got relief from the pain in the leg, just throwing that there. Not realizing you're getting headaches every day. Only the doctor could make that connection for you. Well, you're thinking, oh, it's
Correct.
sinus. Yeah, the weather's changing. No, the doctor can tell you that that headache and probably some blood work that it's that headache is not. Now you're dealing with something else that for some people, unfortunately, don't let me scare you, becomes an aneurysm, becomes some
Good
type of
point.
issue that you could have avoided. And it's a side effect to the medicine, but you did not take ownership for your healing. And this is what this episode today is about, is how do you take ownership for your healing and your health and become the change that you seek without pointing fingers at someone, because the system is the system. The doctors will do what they do. It's you own your health. And how you do make decisions, as we've been building here, is what matters, Doc. That's the one thing I respect about your work, your and Dr. Michelle's work, is that you have an outcome based protocol with your patients and your clients and the people you serve. It's not trendy. You also use advanced diagnostics and genetic stress response. Tell us about all that vascular aging, neurotransmitters, stuff that I just need to go be like, check me, teach me.
Yeah.
Why does
Well,
this
life is,
personalization matter so much? And why does the one size all fit doesn't work?
well, we're all different. I mean, even just one little thing you said, genetically speaking, we're
Mhm.
99.9% alike, but in the 25,000 odd genes, with the genetic alphabet being adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, and when you got 23 chromosomes full of genes that are wound together from mom and dad, you got a brand new book of recipes with just trillions of different combinations. So the way we make those proteins is different. 1% is fascinating in the sense that it creates differences in the way we respond to our environment. So it cannot be a one size fit all. If it did, we'd all be identical twins. And then in that case, it still wouldn't be a one size fits all because the emotional perception or the stress perception creates differences in the genetic expression. Now, having said all that, when someone comes in with us, I'm going to look at genetics. I'm going to look at good blood work. We're going to talk about nutrition, sleep, stress management, movement. We're going to talk about supplementation, hormones, and peptides. We're going to talk about emotions. We're going to talk about the spiritual health, where they are. We're going to just dive into them as a whole person and create a plan for them based upon all those things that's designed to give them a roadmap for the best possible life that we just discussed at the beginning of the podcast.
Wow. So tell us what it would look like walking into your and Dr. Michelle's practice when someone comes
Well,
to you. What does that kind of look like? How do you guys unpack?
the first time we visit with somebody, whether it be in person or remote, we have a pretty good sized questionnaire. It's electronic. People can fill it out, just a little bit about their lives, symptoms, medications, supplements, what they do, social life habits, lifestyle choices. We go through all that. And I or my wife both, we
Mhm.
prepare ourselves for this person, where they live, are they married, they're not married. And then we'll review all that with them to make sure that we didn't miss anything, something that they forgot to tell us, etc. And then we'll begin to ask them about their life. I want to know what you do, how long you did it, have you moved lately, where you
Mhm.
live, do you like that? Husband, wife, kids, what are your names? What are your dogs' names? You know, where'd you go to school? All that really matters. So you're building this idea of an understanding of this human, and they're unique. And at that point in time, but not until you do all that, you've got to know them. You build a sense of relationship, and good things are more likely to happen in a trustworthy relationship as opposed to in a
Mhm.
non-trustworthy relationship. So we want to build that relationship. And at that point in time, we're just going to be using discernment and wisdom to create a plan. And I might say, like, all right, you know, Alisa, this is what we're going to do. This is what I'm thinking. We want to get in your case, we want to get a comprehensive genetic panel because I want to know how you're wired because you've got this stuff going on and you got all these family
Mhm.
histories going on. I want to know, genetically speaking, where our susceptibilities is so that I can plug those gaps. And then we may want to get a comprehensive blood panel because
Mm-hmm.
you got all this stuff going on. You don't have any answers here. And because it's not your fault, Alisa, because you haven't asked the right question, meaning you haven't gotten the right blood work. So we're going to get the right blood work. We're going to take those two things, we're going to combine all the data together, and we're going to get you better one step at a time. And the plan just kind of evolves from
Mm-hmm.
there. We might check neurotransmitters. We might check a stool test. We might check food antigen testing. We might check mold. We might check other things, but it's really a systematic approach that evolves over time. If
Based on.
we as clinicians get so hyper focused on one thing or the other, it's almost like an investigation. You get hyper focused on the wrong suspect, you'll miss the right suspect. And so we really want to make sure that we're open to the evolution of the healing experience the person has. Every person is different. And I think that's probably been one of the great things that people like and have enjoyed about my wife and I is we put a lot of work into it. Every person we deal with at that time is the most important person to us in the world at that time.
Wow. This really mirrors like genetic. I'm in my thought, I'm thinking generic advice fails people who need precision. So it absolutely, it's like I can't give the same as a coach in my world with people who are, when I'm doing life coaching or career coaching or leadership coaching. I can't just give everybody the same thing. I may have a
Yes.
framework, but it's still the same. And finally, for a second time today, lucky me, I've interviewed two medical doctors that are definitely working in that space. Now, it's funny how things work out because I'm like, what are the odds? And I can't wait for you guys to meet each other. So let's talk about longevity as a mindset, right? Longevity is everywhere right now. Biohacking is becoming popular. I've talked to a couple people about biohacking, and everybody has their own thing, not necessarily medical doctors, but they're doing it too. But discipline is not. Even the way I appear to look now, if I show you side by side pictures from 9 years ago, you'll see people have been saying you're aging backwards. But what I
Yeah.
tell them, there's a discipline. I am up in the morning at 5 doing my meditation, my workout, and doing it. I'm not going to act like I'm a workout girly, but I've become a disciplined woman who works out. And it's not only for the fact of looking good and looking sparkly, it's really how it helps my brain, someone who suffered a brain injury early in life, and how it helps my overall mental state as well. What does longevity really require mentally in a day to day when it comes to like no hacks, no shortcuts, but habits and beliefs?
It goes back to probably three principles or three concepts that must be mastered in regard to discipline. One is really the food part. I say that because most people don't get it. You cannot diet, don't diet, you live it, meaning that you eat real food.
Hmm.
And when you're hungry, you eat. When you're not, you don't. You can work on compressing the
Hmm.
meals in which you eat, or maybe meal timing, or perhaps the other way to say it is an elongated time of not eating, right? You can do that, and that's helpful. But the
Hmm.
food selections must become very intentional. And you must realize, as I said earlier, that food is either going to be information for the cells because it feeds the mitochondria, it feeds ATP production, it feeds the human body to be able to do what it does. Nutrients do that. Amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals. Those come from real food. Fake food or artificial food does not have those. So you eat with intentionality to feed the body's functionality so that the food that you eat becomes information as opposed to inflammation and it yields health versus harm. That would be number one. Number two is you have to move with purpose. The only day that you don't exercise is the day you're dead. The legs we have are meant to walk. The arms we have are meant to do more than, well, fork curls, unless you want to have salads all day, which would be okay by me. But the bottom line is we need to move with purpose every day. Movement creates mobility. Mobility is life. A lack
Hmm.
of mobility is called rigor mortis or death. Movement creates muscles. Muscles are like the eternal gasoline that keeps on giving because the muscles move bones and create mobility. We must maintain our muscle. So
Mm-hmm.
exercise is not an option. So movement is got to be part of life, and you got to find out what you like to do and do it more and do it better, more consistently. So you got the eating with intentionality, moving with purpose. And the last one is more of an emotional, spiritual context. You have to practice peace. Like when you practice peace, you can sleep at night. I mean, you might have
Mm-hmm.
problems going on, but you can still sleep. You work on positive things, even though you're going to have things that happen to you negative in life. You work on
Mm-hmm.
being in a place where you can forgive people, where you're not living with bitterness or resentment or anger or disappointment or shame all the time. And every day you wake up with peace or to make peace happen in that day, it takes effort. One thing I like to do to force that one, and this is the part of that third component of the disciplines, is maybe start with 1 minute, but maybe you can get to 10 minutes of just being quiet, meditation or prayer, and just shh, don't talk, just
Mm-hmm.
listen. And there's healing in quiet because then you can begin to hear who you are. We practice, some would say, introspection, mindfulness, whatever you want to call that. It's just being in that space, embracing now. And when you do that, practicing peace, things begin to calm down and slow down your brain. And then you can begin to
Mm-hmm.
make better decisions. Because how many times you hear in life, people make a goofy decision or make a goofy thing they do, and they say, well, I just wasn't thinking. I don't know why I wasn't thinking. Well, it's because you weren't thinking. You're just like going through so fast that it just became this unconscious reaction. And so eating with intentionality, moving with purpose, and practicing peace. To do those things, you have to be aware of space
Mm-hmm.
and time, and you have to be aware of
Mm-hmm.
what's happening. And just doing those three things right there, whether you go to a doctor or not, whether you see a doctor or not, those things right there are going to yield health benefits every single time. And it's going to create a wonderful return on investment. And it costs you zero to put those disciplines into practice.
Exactly. They're very simple and it's all about committing, making that decision, committing, and staying consistent. And I tell people, I'm like, it's been 2 years in this time of my life. Well, have we got 2 years? Yeah, yeah, just about. Yeah, just turned 2 years of me consistently working out every day. And I still celebrate every day that I do, every time that I do, because I remember when I thought I was too sick to work out. And the doctor actually told me I was and said, you're probably going to do more harm.
Mm,
So what I did was left hematologists and all of them alone. And I went to a doctor who was health and fitness, who works with
mhm.
athletes. And so his perspective and his knowledge on the body and actual exercise guided me into what would work for me. Because his mindset is you can. So
Yes.
I just need what my body knew and what my mind knew and what I was learning. I need someone probably at that time who co-signs what I believe and what I've
Yeah.
learned about my body and the body and what I desire, the change I wanted, versus someone who don't. No shame on them. That's their way of looking at what my blood work is saying, and all of that says exercising, lifting weights, actually. Lifting weights is
Mm,
dangerous for you when it's the complete opposite. Because
yeah.
I was just doing cardio all the time and not ever picking up the weights. Best decision I ever did was to pick up the weights so that my muscles can move in directions that it hasn't. And they got strong. I used to suffer with I was in my mid 20s because of what was going on in my body and could not get on my knees or go down and come back up. Excuse my language. I could drop it low with my 15-year-old niece and bring it right back up. No problems. And I'm 45, which for me is a test to my endurance and longevity. But that is the thing. When you know what your body tells you too, right, Doc? It tells you find ways to affirm the treatment and the need that your body has, and it's real simple. I tell people I'm not in the gym because my schedule doesn't allow me to go to my gym every day, but my gym is in my living room every day. Movement is in my living room because I have a very sedative role. I'm in meetings, and if I get in my car and I go to an office in a meeting, I'm sitting, I'm sitting, I'm sitting. And so even with my sitting, I get up and I move a lot. I can't move during the podcast because I'm not standing. And some episodes I record standing because I know
Mm.
I'm going to be doing a couple of episodes in succession. But don't overthink it. You don't need a
No,
gym to get
that's real simple.
physical.
No, it's just movement. And I love how you said that. You don't need to go to a gym to find places to move. You write that in your living room. You can, get up, stand up, sit down in your chair with no hands over and over and over again, all day long. And, finding those little trick I told people, really anybody, it's called the 20 and 2 rule. For every 20 minutes you sit, stand up
Mm,
for 2. And if you just do that, just
mm,
the actual standing up will kick in an enzyme that's called lipase, which is actually in part
mm-hmm,
responsible for breaking down fat tissue. So, I mean,
mm-hmm.
is it much? No. But is it something? Yes. And those small
Because you
steps
start
like
to
that
see the
create
difference.
momentum. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started off with a set of, I think, 2, 3, 5 pound weights. And I got bored with them, and then I added on my 10s, and then I kept increasing to my 15s, my 20s, my 25s, 30s, 35s, and now I can lift 50 on each side. And I do my
Come on.
legs, I do
Good.
back, I do shoulders, I do body, and I do um sort of calisthenics as well with the traditional strength training because and functional training because the thing about it you just don't realize that you to do life, your muscles need to be enriched. So it's not even about all and I my trainer, she's Kaylee Cohen, big shout out to her on YouTube. We just have a great time, and it's just seeing your body not even just transform, but function differently in the world and you being more, prone to eating healthy so you understanding like the learning, this is why the learning is so important and you take the time out to be on podcast and be on television and the things that you do because you're teaching us there is a way that is healthier that gives you the change you want. So I wanted to flip the script with you, Doc. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am. Of
And
course.
this is where I ask those questions and how. So can you tell me when there was a moment personally or professional, where you had to radically change the way you thought in order to get results in your own health and achieve the goals that you have? What shifted?
There was a time when I was a police officer that I was tasked with developing a wellness program. And the wellness program didn't exist at the time. So I had to figure out how to do it. So I started running statistics. And I found out a statistic that applied to 20-year male retired police officers. And it was a
Mhm.
50-year-old study that was done by the FBI. And the study said that the officers were going to live to the age of 66. And I thought, wow, that doesn't sound very good. But of course, that was 50 years ago. So I ran some
Right.
numbers. This is back around maybe 2000, and some numbers for my county and city at that point, and it was the same. Nothing had changed. And that shocked me because I had bled and fought and cried with fellow officers for nearly 2.5 decades. And they were just retiring and dying. And I thought, there's got to be more than that. I don't want to do that. I want to teach people how not to do that. And that sort of led me to what I'm doing right now, of course, protection and service in a broader scope. But
Mhm.
that statistic really bothered me because it affected so many people and it affected their hope. And I thought,
Mm.
we got to shift that. So that was a significant moment in my life.
Wow, that is so profound. I would have never guessed. So the follow-up question I have for that is when you think about it, what was one big, maybe health crisis that maybe you endured or maybe a family member endured that made you even more passionate about knowing that this type of change is necessary, and it was always now, it's not later?
August 2002, towards the end of my police career, but I get a call and I'm sent to go out to a nearby bridge over a big river. And on that day, I learned that my mom had parked her car and jumped off the bridge to her death. And it rocked me to the core. And I didn't know what to do, didn't know how to deal with it. From a health standpoint, emotional health, spiritual health, physical health, you just kind of like you're numb and you kind of spiral out of control. And
Mm,
I had to deal with it. And I
mhm,
had to decide at that moment in time that I wasn't going to let um, a mental health crisis affect me.
mhm,
I,
mhm,
that moment in time, I realized that far be it from me to judge somebody else when the person that was closest to me at that time decided to make a permanent decision to a temporary problem. And we can all put ourselves in that spot. If we're honest, we're one moment away from making a bad decision or a good decision or saying something great or saying something that is really mean. And so I had to make a decision at that day how I wanted my life to be and what I wanted it to stand for and how I was going to somehow take a horrific situation and somehow, the pain, turn it around to be something that there could be some good come out of. And I'm still struggling with the good part of that, but I
mhm.
also know that what I won't do, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yep. Oh, I get it. So familiar with that decision. So
Yeah.
familiar with that process. So many times that you have this there's I forget I'm guessing that each human on this planet has one or two of those scenarios in their whole life where there's
Yeah,
just you learn to make peace with it, but you still have those moments when, whatever
you
that
do.
looks like, you question it and you want answers and you're like, am I ever gonna figure out why? But we've learned it's no different than if, when you burn yourself, it heals up over time, but that scar is still there and it's visible. You can see it. It doesn't go away. And you're
Scars of the
always
heart.
gonna remember. Yeah. You said scars are what, Doc?
Scars of the heart.
Yes.
True.
Yes. How do you define success for yourself now? With everything that I mean, I've just found out you had a whole 'nother career at one point.
Yeah. Um, it's not about money. At this point in my life, it it's not really about money, fame, or notoriety. It's about looking at the day, one day at a time. And I'm
Mhm.
not being dramatic. This is the way I feel right now at this point in my life. Did I today, did I do everything I could do to tell people around me that I loved them, the ones I cared about, and did I do what I
Mm,
could do to help somebody else and to leave the world a better place? And it
mm,
truly is that simple. It maybe boils down to this: living today like it's my last, but living today like I'll live forever. Same
mhm.
time. For me, that's kind of success. That's the result.
It is. I love that definition. I get it. I love it. So now we're gonna land the plane here with our next segment, our final segment, which is called Mindset Bites to Go. This is where I step away from the video and the camera, and it's just you and the audience. And my question for you to address in your delivery today, Dr. Sherwood, is if you've got someone listening right now who knows something needs to change, but they're overwhelmed. What are some of those mindset shifts they must make today if they're truly going to heal? I'm going to give you the microphone and it's just you and the audience.
Well, if you're here today and you in that place where you know something needs to change, you don't know what to do, you don't know how to do it, you're kind of like feeling alone, feeling hopeless. First thing that I want you to know is that that feeling that you're having is something that probably every single other person is having and has had before in their life, but yours is a little bit different. And no one can say to you that I understand. They can just listen. And perhaps this whole show has been for you because in this case, I can tell you that I love you and care about you very much. And I care that you know you're valued, even though that I've never met you, most likely. And as long as you have ears to hear, and as long as there's this thing called today, which I like to call a gift, we can understand today like this. Today is not yesterday because yesterday is history. Today is not tomorrow because tomorrow is still a mystery. But today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. And the best thing to understand today is because you begin with a gift of the present, is to understand that your setback that you've had is not something that you want to step back from, because it's something you can step up from because your comeback is just around the corner. The decision to make today is one that will set the tone for tomorrow. Look ahead with your decision. Look forward with your decision. Visualize driving the car, looking in the panoramic view of the windshield as opposed to looking at the small view of the rearview mirror. It's time to move on, to go forward, to forgive, to let go, to stop the shame, and start living your life starting right now. One moment, one breath at a time. And I'll wrap up my encouragement for you with this. Life is going to be tough sometimes. This time you're having right now is tough, man. Promise you that. Can't experience your pain right now for you. But setbacks and knockdowns like that are just opportunities to get back up again. And the more times you do that, I promise you this, the harder it will be to get knocked down and the harder it will be to keep you down. So I want you to be encouraged. I want you to be empowered and realize today, right now, right at this moment is the first day, the first moment of the rest of your life.
Absolutely. It is the first day of the rest of your life, and you get to choose how you're going to spend that rest of your life. Such an incredible conversation. It's not about fear, it's about truth. Dr. Sherwood, tell us, what is your favorite way for us to connect with you? And I believe that there's some things on your website that our guests can access if there's one that you want to point us in direction to. And there are a couple events too. You're going to be in a few cities. Tell us about that.
Yeah, people could go to drmarksherwood.com. That's my personal website. It's DRMARKHERWOOD. And there's all kinds of resources there. And you can access those. The free ebook is great. I mean, it's entitled Hope, Health, and Freedom. I hope people get all that because it's a lot of stuff we talked about that you can put into practice right now that will help you in every step of your life, creating more longevity, more health, and more health span, et cetera. There's a lot of events coming up that you'll see on the page and a book that we've got coming out. The next book we have is Authentic Longevity. Target date on that is probably going to be April of this year. And so be looking for that one. That's exciting. There's a movie coming out this year as well. It's called Forgotten Fortune. And we filmed it last year, but it stars Lou Ferrigno and Jimmy Walker, and I'm actually in the movie myself. So I think people really enjoy that one. It's a story of a guy named with Alzheimer's disease. And it's got some humorous moments, some heartfelt moments, and some celebratory moments. So I think that'll be good. And obviously there's a lot of things, free resources on our website there for you. And just enjoy those. Let those be a gift and a blessing.
Just awesome. So where would the movie be released, Dr. Sherwood?
Yeah, look for it sometime late summer. It'll be out there, possibly in theaters. You never know who picks those things up, but definitely Apple TV, Amazon, places like that.
That is awesome. Just congratulations in advance. And we would love to see, by then you would be back for us to talk some more too. And we'd love to share it once it comes out here in the community. Wow, this has been such an awesome, wonderful conversation. Dr. Sherwood, thank you so much for reminding us that healing is possible and longevity is available, and that we don't have to die through life. We can really and truly live through it till the end when we change addresses, really. And thank you for also reminding us that it requires leadership to start and taking ownership of our own lives and the decisions we make and the outcomes we receive from those decisions. And that we can start to we have an opportunity, and you've created a space, an amazing space for us to connect with you and Dr. Michelle and your team to get the lessons that we need to learn so we can take charge, right? And to our listeners, if this episode challenged you, good. That's where growth begins, and that's where it starts. I would love for you to send the message and let Dr. Sherwood know that you heard him here on Mindset Mastery Moments. Go to his website, check out all the free stuff he has. I was checking it out myself yesterday, and there's good stuff there. So make sure you connect with Dr. Mark and his beautiful wife, Michelle, who we will have on an episode later on this year, and explore their work. Let them know you heard him here and that the message he's bringing to the world is transformation, and get on your journey to wellness and longevity. Listen, always keep mastering your mindset and how you think. What you think is what you begin speaking. It's what you become. It's the results you get in your life. I'm Dr. Alisa with Dr. Sherwood saying we'll see you on the next episode. Keep mastering your mindset. Bye now.